Alrighty, friends, we have been talking about fractions for the past couple of weeks, and today we're really going to focus in on comparing fractions. So our learning target is I can compare two fractions with different numerators and denominators by creating common denominators and using the symbols greater than, less than, and equal to. So here's an example. 9/12 is equal to 3/4. If you want to do it along with us, you might want to pause and get a whiteboard, sock, and marker, or a piece of paper. All right. Get back here 1 second. Okay, so if we're comparing fractions from least to greatest or smallest to biggest, okay? So if we had the fractions 3/6, which right away your brain should be going off and saying, hey, 3/6, that's a half. Because the numerator, the top number, is half of the denominator. 3/4 or 3/4, maybe you're thinking of money, you're like, oh, that's more than a half, that's 75 cents. 3/9 and 3/7. You notice they all have a 3 in the numerator or top number. If we need to put them in order from smallest to biggest or least to greatest, I like to think about halves, right? Which of these are less than half, which ones are bigger? But there's something easy we can do when all the numerators are the same. The fraction with the largest number in the denominator is smaller since the parts are smaller. So you see how they all have different sized denominators? This 9th is actually the smallest because those are really small pieces. Think of a pizza split into 6 pieces, 4 pieces, 9 pieces, and 7 pieces. If you only got 3 of the 9ths, those would be pretty small pieces. So that's the smallest. The next biggest denominator is the 7th, which means your pizza is split into 7 pieces and you have 3 of them. So 3/7 is the next smallest. Then we've got our 6ths, which is a half. 3/6 would be the next biggest. And then the 4ths would be the biggest size pieces, and you got 3 of them. So that would be the greatest amount. So if the numerators are the same, then the fractions with the largest denominators or bottom numbers are actually the smaller amounts. So think of pizzas. Okay. So if we take a look here, let's try that again. If we're looking at these from least to greatest, again, they all have the same numerators. So if we put them in order, right, we're looking at those bottom numbers. So this is 9 small pieces, we have 5 of them. This is 7 small pieces, we have 5 of them. 6 small pieces, we have 5 of them, and 8 small pieces, we have 5 of them. The smallest would be 5/9, followed by 5/8, 5/7, and 5/6 would be the largest. That's almost the whole pizza. That's 5 out of the 6 pieces. Okay, compare fractions from greatest to least, or from biggest to smallest. Now we're going backwards. Again, we have the same numerator, same number on top, so we're looking at these denominators. Now, since we're starting with the biggest, we're actually looking for the smallest denominators because that means that there's less pieces and the pieces are bigger. So the smallest would be 3, so 2/3 of the would be the biggest. 2/3 of a pizza. So if your pizza was split into 3 parts, you'd be getting 2 of them. If it was split into 4 parts, you'd be getting 2 of them, 2/4 or half, followed by 2/5 and 2/8. Notice how we put those denominators in order. Okay, if they have different denominators, one thing you might want to do is draw a picture. So notice that these candy bars, I call them candy bars, are the same size, they're just split into different size pieces. This is split into 5ths, and 3 of them are colored in. So 3/5. This is the same size candy bar, except it's split into 10ths. And we're talking about 7/10. Okay, now they wanted to point out here that 6/10 is equivalent to 3/5. See how if we only had 6, they'd be the same? But since there's one more, we actually know that the 7/10 is greater. It equals 1 more than 3/5. 1 more tenth than 3/5. Do you see that right there? So we know the 7/10 is greater. How about 3/4 and 5/12? Well, we've got the same size candy bar, but this one's split into fourths. This one's split into 12ths. So we've got our 3 colored in, 3/4, and we've got our 5/12 colored in. Now they wanted to point out here that in order for them to be equivalent or the same, we'd need 9/12, right? But we only have 5 of them, so definitely 3/4 is larger. How about 6/8 and 9/16? So again, the same size candy bar, but this candy bar is split into 8ths, bigger size pieces, and this is split into 16ths. So this, you can see right away that the 6/8 is larger, but they wanted to show you if they were equivalent or the same, it'd be 12/16. So the 6/8 is definitely greater. It's 3/16 more than a 9/16. Now, how about these? A 1/2 and a 1/12. Looks like they're equivalent. They're the same. Even though this one's split into 2 large size pieces and this is split into 24 small pieces, they take the same amount. Okay, this gets a little confusing, but I'm still going to introduce it. So one way we can compare is by finding the least common denominator, or the least common multiple for the fractions. So if we find all the multiples of 5 and 10, since we have a 5 in the denominator and a 10 here, and the multiples are the answers you get when you multiply that number by any number. So here's all the multiples of 5. Here's all the multiples of 10. We're looking for the smallest one that they both have. So they both have 10. So we could get into tenths. Well, hey, 7/10 is already in tenths, so it's good. All we've got to do is get 3/5 into tenths. So in order to get the bottom to tenths, we multiply the 5 times 2. So then we do the same thing to the top. 3 times 2 is 6. So 6/10 and 7/10. Well, now it's easy to see that 7/10 is greater. So that's another way you can go about comparing these. Let's take a look at that again. So we're finding the least common multiple of 4 and 12. They've done the hard work and listed out all the multiples here. And we're looking for the smallest one, which happens to be 12. They both have 12. This one's already in 12ths, so we leave it. We have to get our 3/4 and figure out how many 12ths that's going to be. Well, 3/4, if we multiply the fourths times 3, it gets to 12. Then just do the same thing to the numerator, 9/12. So which is greater? Well, 3/4 would be greater because it's 9/12, and that's bigger than 5/12. Okay. How about this? How about 3 and 2? Well, here's all their multiples, and the smallest one that they both have in common is a 6. So in order to get 1/3 into 6, we multiply the top and the bottom by 2. So 1/3 is the same as 2/6. They're equivalent fractions. And in order to get to 6 with our half, we multiply by 3. So equivalent to a half would be 3/6. So what's bigger, 2/6 or 3/6? You've got it, 3/6. Okay, let's take a look at this one here, 12ths and 8ths. If we list out the multiples, the smallest one they have in common is 24. So in order to get 24 for both of them, well, 7/12, I know that if I multiply 12 times 2, that'll be 24. So I'll also multiply the 7 times 2, that's 14. So this one, 7/12 is equivalent to 14/24. In order to get to 24 here, I need to multiply both numbers by 3. So 9/24. Okay, so here the least common multiple is 30th, so we're getting them both into 30ths. We had to do the 5ths times by 6 and the 6 times by 5, and 18/30ths is larger than 15/30ths. Okay, why don't you go ahead and take a moment and pause your video and give some of these a shot. Alrighty, I have went through and get it right to the, oh no, I gotta go through them all again. How did you do on that? We'll take a look here and we'll see. Hopefully Mrs. Camp can go through this quickly. It's taking a while here. I'm just gonna pop. All right, friends, you can pause your video and check your work with mine. I circled the larger fraction. So this one, they were equivalent, right? Because 3/21, if I wanted to get this one into 21 pieces, I'd multiply the 7 times 3 to get to 21, and the 1 times 3, which would be 3/21. A lot of them I just thought about a half, like half of 20 is 10. So in order for these to be equal, it'd have to be 10/20ths. So this one is way smaller than a half. Again, here, I thought about getting this into 36. So I said 9 times 4 would be 36. 3 times 4 would be 12. So 12, this is the same as 12/36. And it's definitely larger.